And I'm Jim Longworth, and welcome to a special voter education edition of Triad Today, where we will focus on the race for United States Senate here in North Carolina. Before we get going with that, though, here are a few words from Todd Hall, President and CEO of Triad Federal Credit Union, who's helping to sponsor this show.
At Triad Federal Credit Union, we understand the importance of the ballot box in shaping our future. The institutions led by state and local leaders form the foundation of our society. Giving candidates for office a platform to engage with voters on the issues that matter most in our communities is essential to the health of our democracy. We support Triad Today's commitment to voter education because of its importance in the political process. I'm Todd Hall, President and CEO of Triad, and we hope you enjoy this special presentation.
Thanks, Todd. We'll be right back. Back now on our special voter education edition of Triad Today, and we focus this time on the Republican candidates for United States Senate. And we start off with my friend Ted Budd, who is, of course, a veteran incumbent congressman from the 13th District, and we welcome you back.
Jim, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Let me first address with you, I don't want to get too much into politics, we don't talk about issues, but I'm going to start with a political question. Former President Trump gave you a big endorsement earlier. It was earlier this year at a function, right?
It was June 5th, that's right, in Greenville.
Now, will that help or hurt you in the primary, and will it help or hurt you in the general if you get the nomination?
Yeah, Jim, that's a great question. It definitely will help in the primary, and it will help in the general as well. But you want the kind of the rule of thumb that we're understanding it is you definitely want the endorsement. The president carries a lot of weight. I'm grateful for it. He didn't have to endorse me. He didn't have to endorse me in June, but he did. So I'm very thankful for that. It was a huge factor in putting me what we believe now to be in the lead in the primary. But again, you got to earn it with the voters. I kind of, you being in media, you'll appreciate Paul Harvey.
Yeah.
He always used to say, or now for the rest of the story. So people want to know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
And I'm out there across the state sharing the rest of the story, who I am, background, what I believe. But when it comes to the general, it's also very helpful. But you got to win on the issues. And if people are wondering about who I am, I tell them my style is distinctly North Carolinian.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, for unaffiliated voters like myself, and I'm sort of left-leaning on some things and right-leaning on others, you have to, whoever the nominee is on either party has to pick up those unaffiliated voters. Absolutely. In the fall.
Yeah. And we did that in 2018. Remember, it was not a good year for Republicans. I was elected in 2016.
Right.
The Republicans had, the House, the Senate, and of course the presidency. But 2018 swung against us. So I had to really win on the issues in a very tough district, the toughest district in North Carolina.
Right.
And I won. Nancy Pelosi put me on a list of 33 members to eliminate, and I beat her by 6 points.
I tell you what, sometimes it's hard to understand these things, but one thing I want to understand too is that there are a lot of incumbents in the House and Senate that are leaving Washington for one reason or another, and the common denominator seems to be there's just too much bickering, I'm tired of it, I'm gone. So given that, even though you've been serving successfully in Congress, why would you want to get back into the fray in another chamber where there's still vitriol?
I think about where I come from in Davie County, about 35 minutes west of here, and the people that are out there, they just want somebody to stand up for them. They feel like Washington, D.C. has largely forgotten them, and the Beltway has. And so they need people there that remember them, that remember who sent them there, and that they're standing up for the forgotten men and women of America. And I've never been one to stand on the sidelines. I'm not a complainer. I'm a doer. And so I just threw my hat in the ring in 2016. It was a 17-way primary. It worked out. I've had the privilege of serving, and I'm trying that again for the U.S. Senate, and so far it's working. Much
more elite chamber, if I can use those words, because there's only 100 senators. But a lot of folks maybe don't understand the difference. Not that we want to spend a lot of time on this, but very quickly, because I know you can vote on treaties and things like that in the Senate. How would it be different?
Well, I like to say that the House is PR and the Senate is HR. When you think about appointments and actually choosing who goes into the president's administration, or you're a red light, green light.
Judicial appointments.
Judicial appointments, of course. So we saw 3 appointments from President Trump to the Supreme Court. But also you look at some of the very radical leftists that Biden's administration is choosing. I don't necessarily say Biden. I think there are a lot of people that are being sent his way that he's sending over to the Senate for consent, including avowed socialist or even beyond that.
Yeah.
And it's incompatible with what's made our country great. And so you've got to say no to those, and those who want to make our country better, you want to say yes to those.
You have to sort of moderate. I mean, I know you get hit from people on the far right and you have to deal with people on the far left, but also one thing I appreciate about you, not that I'm doing a commercial endorsement for you, but that you're not one of these name-calling folks on either side of the aisle, and I think that's refreshing. But now, let's spend a couple minutes. Tell me about some things you're proud of that you've done as a congressman.
Yeah. When you think about what we did with Tax Cuts and Jobs Act back in 2017, not too far from here, south of High Point, still make a lot of furniture, and even more than we did probably a decade ago. To see people invest in saws, I mean, these are $250,000 saws in a woman-owned furniture plant, and she bought 4 of them and hired a lot of employees. To see that kind of story over and over, to lead to the lowest unemployment rate for minorities, lowest unemployment rate for women in over 50 years. So those kind of successes, but day in and day out, and even with the minority environment that I'm in as a Republican in the House, we're able to accomplish things for veterans, to get them service dogs. We're able to stem the tide of opioids and prevent drug dealers from doctor shopping and sending those drugs onto the street. And of course, rural broadband, which we saw such a need for during the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah.
Those are things that we're able to accomplish in all kinds of environments.
Yeah, because if we don't continue to build that broadband network, that's a real disadvantage for kids that do have to learn at home. What will be, looking forward, give me an example of a priority for you in the Senate. Personally, what would be a priority for you?
Sure. You always want to make sure that we have a strong America. We're seeing a tremendously a devastating approach by the Biden administration as demonstrated in Afghanistan back in August. And that really emboldens our enemies. It emboldens China. It emboldens Russia. And it demoralizes those who are giving their lives and have given their lives, and the families of them. Our service members. So it's devastating.
What's the biggest threat to us? You mentioned China and Russia. What's the biggest security threat to our nation?
I think our external threats would be China and the Chinese Communist Party. I'm not going to blame the 1.5 billion people over there, but I will say there's a concentrated elite that are not our friends. They're not our enemies, and they would destroy us if they had the chance.
We're trying to end this horrible pandemic. The variants keep coming in different forms. It may be that some form of it's going to be with us for a long time. But it looks like to try to get rid of it, to try to knock it out as much as we can, that folks need to use common sense and get vaccinated. The president, of course, wants to have a mandate for everybody to get vaccinated. What do you think?
I think it's incompatible with the way the U.S. operates at its best. And the way Americans do. If you want them to do something, you can put the truth out there, put the facts out there, and let people come to their own decision. But when you mandate to an American, they dig their heels in, and they say, I'm very skeptical of what you're offering me.
Yeah, but Ted, we mandated polio vaccines. We mandate certain vaccines for kids when they go to school, and parents used to understand that. Now it becomes a flashpoint. No, you're not putting a needle in me.
Well, information is so much more easily disseminated now. We just need to make sure that we are a trustworthy, that you have a trustworthy administration. You don't want to politicize public health. And I think you and I are on the same page when it comes to if somebody needs to wear a mask, they should wear a mask. If they want both be fully vaccinated plus boosters, that's fine. And they need to have a lot more conversations with their doctors than they do hearing from politicians or medical practitioners who have become politicized.
Yeah. We've talked about on the show before as sort of a disclaimer because my wife and I have been to your gun shop and shooting range and enjoy that. As long as she doesn't aim at me, that's the. No,
downrange.
Downrange, yeah. I mention that because it's no secret that aside from being a businessman in that arena, that you're also a staunch defender of Second Amendment rights.
Right.
Having said all that, what can you do personally in the Senate to try to stem the tide of gun violence that we seem to be inundated with?
Well, bottom line, you want to keep firearms out of the hands of bad actors and bad people. And you do that by following the existing laws, and you make sure that we do things like we've already done and that the administration continues to implement the changes in fixed NICS. When they do a criminal background check through the NICS service, you want to make sure that the information there is up to date, that it's accurate, and that those that are criminals or have criminal intent, that you remove firearms from them, or that they never get them in the first place.
Parental responsibility. I don't want to get into the details about the Michigan case where the parents, had been prosecuted for buying the gun for their son and then not securing it. How do you stand on, should parents be made criminally responsible if they don't lock up guns, if they make guns accessible to kids that then go on and commit a crime with them? Should it fall on the parents?
I believe most of that law falls under state regulations. And as a parent, I just want to say you always want to treat every firearm as loaded. You want to keep it out of the hands of those who don't know how to operate it and those who might be irresponsible with it. So you always want to have safety first.
You and I've talked about this a long time before, but I'll say it for this special or ask it. Who or what had the most impact on your life and career?
Yeah, definitely my mom and dad. I've got great parents. They're still healthy, and I love them very much, and I'm grateful for them. In the last 27 years, I've had an amazing wife in Amy Cates. So
Three kids.
Three kids, that's right. And they're amazing as well, and I look forward to seeing them over the holidays.
Well, Congressman, I appreciate the time you gave us for this, and good luck in the primary. I want to put up on screen www.tedbudd.com is where you can get more information. We just scratched the surface here, but go to that website and find out more about Ted and his positions, and take care of yourself and good luck.
Thank you, Jim.
We'll be right back. Back now on this special voter education edition of Triad Today as we continue to talk with Republican candidates for United States Senate. With me, my friend Pat McCrory, former 7-term mayor of Charlotte, former governor, now Republican candidate for United States Senate. We welcome you back to Triad Today.
It's great being in downtown Kernersville at the Botanical Garden. What a beautiful,
great.
A beautiful studio you have.
It's a beautiful room that we're in the gift shop. And speaking of that, I want to get rid of 2 elephants in the room, and then I want to get to the main issue. I don't want to spend but a couple seconds on this. 1, Trump did not endorse you. 2, there's still a misperception out there among people that don't know the facts that think that you created the bathroom bill. You didn't create it. You didn't write it. And you and I don't agree on a lot of things. We don't go out and socialize and stuff, but I'm just telling you the facts. You didn't create it. You didn't write it. You tried to kill it twice. So here's the question. In the primary, will the Trump non-endorsement hurt you? And if you get the nomination, will the lingering misperceptions about HB2 hurt you in the general?
Well, let me just say this, that my record stands on its own. My record of accomplishment as governor, as mayor, where I decreased crime, decreased the murder rate, decreased taxes, both corporate taxes and income taxes. I led the Carolina comeback when we were the 4th highest unemployment rate in the country. My 2 opponents have to have endorsements to have a chance. They have to stand on the shoulders of others to have a chance at this election. I have not sought one endorsement from a past or current elected official because I stand on my own record. And I'd rather be in that position than having to depend upon someone's endorsement, which that means you depend upon them when you hold office.
Right.
And I'm going to be a very independent player when I'm the next U.S. Senator for North Carolina, as I was governor and as I was mayor. And
you really strengthened the rainy day fund, which I think was ironic, because then when the hurricanes, you were criticized originally by Governor Cooper, when he was running against you, he shouldn't have that rainy day fund. And then, of course, something hits the fan.
COVID and another hurricane.
Yeah, and he was glad that you had it.
The 2 biggest decisions, and it relates to why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. And the main reason I'm running for the U.S. Senate is because when the federal government, along with state governments, started paying people more not to work than to work, I said I'm running. Washington is broken when we're paying people more not to work than to work. And it reminded me of when I became governor in 2013 and when all the protesters started. And they all started protesting because I reduced unemployment compensation at a time when we had a lot of job openings.
Right.
Help wanted signs all over North Carolina, and no one was taking them in 2013. And a lot of the employers told me the reason they're not taking them is they make more on unemployment than they do coming to work for us.
Now it's sort of deja vu.
It's deja vu all over again,
yes.
As Yogi Bear would say.
I know it.
But so what did I do? I reduced unemployment, the unemployment compensation equal to what South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia were paying. And 3 months later, North Carolina had the largest drop in unemployment in the country.
Had a great bond rating. There was a lot of great things that went on in your administration. I'm not trying to be a cheerleader for you and take sides, but it's just, it's facts. And I think that there's too many facts that don't get out there sometimes.
Well, I'm proud of that record of accomplishment. And now more than ever in D.C., I'm running against two people from Washington whose only experience is Washington, D.C. I was a city councilman, part-time city councilman while working full-time for an employer. I was a mayor, a part-time mayor, and I spent a lot of time in that job, and then I was a governor. And to bring that experience of a problem solver to D.C. is what we desperately need, as opposed to someone who went straight to D.C. with no other experience. I always wish everyone in D.C. could at least serve on the school board or county commission or city council.
Right.
So to see how government really
yeah,
works.
you work in private sector and public sector. Now let's don't skirt over the being mayor of Charlotte, because 7 terms, it tells me another fact that you were a coalition builder. Now you can't, I don't care what party you're in, and you happen to be a Republican, you can't get elected 7 times as mayor in Charlotte unless you're pulling people together. And so I've always sort of thought of you, although you and I disagree on some of the more conservative issues, but I've always thought of you as sort of a moderate. Does it concern you that the Republican Party that my father was part of and my mom was part of is being hijacked by far right-wing nuts?
Well, I actually consider myself a conservative. I might have a moderate tone. I don't yell and scream and call people names, but I'm actually very conservative. In fact, when I became mayor, we were having over 125 murders a year. So I did a basic conservative thing. I said, wait a minute, who's committing the crime? And we found out the people committing the crime are the ones who are being arrested 30, 40, 50 times and never prosecuted. Does it sound familiar to today?
Yeah.
And I went, why don't we do a program called Target 100? Let's target the top 100 people who are committing the same crimes over and over again, apply basic conservative principles, prosecute them, get them off the streets, and let our neighborhoods thrive. And as a result, our murder rate went from approximately 125 to less than 35.
Right.
In the tenure I was mayor.
No, we have done,
and now we're doing just the opposite again.
Well, yeah. Now, let's talk about gun violence. What would you be able to do as a United States Senator to try to stem gun violence in this country?
Well, let me tell you that one issue that's not being talked enough about anybody, including me, although as governor I put a lot of work into this, is mental health and drug addiction. Because almost every person in prison has a mental health and alcohol problem or drug problem. And we're not talking about it enough. That is the number one problem. It doesn't poll well, excuse me to all my political consultants, but drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and mental health is the most serious problem related to crime, related to housing, regarding the homeless, and we see it all over the streets, and we're enacting the exact wrong policies to deal with it. The liberals want to give them $10, which they'll go spend on, they make it feel good to give someone on the street money. No, that's the worst thing. You're enabling the situation. We're still promoting drug use, which we shouldn't be doing.
You don't want to see marijuana decriminalized?
I have a very difficult time with that issue because, first of all, I don't think we ought to call it recreational marijuana. One of the great marketing terms of all time is to say recreational marijuana. If we did that with cigarettes, we'd still have the Winston Cup, recreational cigarettes. We got to tell it for what it is. We've got to educate people. Anytime you use any type of substance to interfere with the brain, you're causing some long-term damage, and we're seeing mental health issues.
But should you be sitting in prison for having a joint?
No. But what we ought to be doing with people with prison is helping them with drug rehabilitation and mental health issues. Because what's happening is we let them out of prison, though, and they commit to property crimes or more serious violent crimes, including shootings. And we're seeing that time and time again. Liberals enable it. Conservatives sometimes ignore it. I'm a politician who goes, we're going to confront it. And I did it as governor with members of the military who were dealing with mental health issues coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. I set up mental health courts for our members of our military. They deserved it. They deserve it. We had no idea the pressures that they were under when they were coming back from Afghanistan. I did, by talking to many people in the military, including members of my family. So that's the type of action we need in D.C.
Yeah, now growing up, Who had the most impact on your life and career as it went forward? Was it mom, dad, uncle, aunt, teacher, a professor that led you to a life of, even though you worked in the private sector, led you to a life in public service and shaped who you are? Who had the impact on you?
Oh, my mom and dad. There's no doubt about it. And my grandparent, my granddad served in World War I. Had a big impact on me. The stories about World War I, which was a long time ago, 1918, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, stationed in Charlotte at Camp Green, of all places, before he went to war. My dad, who was a small town city council member before we moved to Jamestown, right down the street from here, had a huge impact. They say I would go to his meetings and take notes. They couldn't read my notes, but I'd take notes.
So as a kid, you took notes for the city council?
My dad always told me, he said, your job is to fulfill your potential and leave this place a better place than when you arrived. That's what my faith tells me too. And that's why public service continues to be a calling, is to leave this great country a better place than when we arrived. And I think I did that as mayor. I know I did that as governor, and I hope to do that as the next U.S. Senator.
But Governor, let me circle back. I mean, I know you talked a little bit about why you want to serve, but there's so much vitriol and partisanship in Congress, both sides of the aisle. Some nut jobs, and they're, name calling, as you said. There are a lot of veteran incumbents who are leaving. They're getting out of there. They just can't take it anymore. Yeah. Why do you want to go into it?
It's a calling. If I don't do it, who will? And who I'm running against are people that I don't think have the necessary experience or accomplishments or problem-solving skills to make a difference. That's the only reason I'm running, is because I think I am simply the best of those who are running. And if I didn't run, I'd go, why didn't you take advantage of that incredible opportunity to make a difference in our state and our country? I would regret it the rest of my life. I don't want to move to Washington, D.C., but it's a commitment to public service. It's a heck of a lot better than a lot of the other sacrifices so many people are making, especially overseas in the military.
Absolutely. Up on screen, I want to make sure you get this up here for educational purposes, voter education. PatMcCrory.com is the website people can get information about.
Yes.
www.patmccrory.com.
You can donate to that, PatMcCrory.com.
Well, now we're not going to do a donation commercial.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because I understand that is because I'm running against some inside Washington groups that are spending $5 million in the last 6 weeks against
See,
them.
that's funny. I brought my wallet because I was going to give you $5 million, and now you've made me mad.
I knew you
All
were
right.
wealthy.
That's
I knew
right.
deep down.
Governor, thanks for doing this, and good luck.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back, and I'm impressed with the settings here.
All right. I did it all. No, I didn't. We'll be right back after this. That's it for this special voter education edition of Triad Today. I'm so glad you could be with us. It's important, I think, for all of us to know a little bit more about the candidates and as we cover this U.S. Senate race. Also, a special thanks to Todd Hall and his team at Triad Federal Credit Union for helping to support and sponsor this special program. And a shout out to the good folks here at Senior Botanical Garden who have hosted us throughout the year and for these special programs. For all of us here at Triad Today, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next time.